Welcome to IGS 10-minute lecture series. This series is brought by the IGS department. IGS stands for Integrated Global Studies. In this series, a professor from the department will give you a mini lecture about her or his research area.
Hi everyone, my name is Yoko Taguchi. I teach cultural anthropology and fieldwork at IGS. In this lecture, I'd like to introduce anthropological thinking on cultural difference and understanding. I have been doing fieldwork in India on various topics, including social movements, care, and domestic work. Cultural anthropology tries to understand and explain different cultures, peoples, and ways of living. However, as we experience in our everyday lives, understanding situations and communicating about them are challenging. We often misunderstand and miscommunicate, even with our friends or family members. So, this lecture explores what we can learn from misunderstanding through anthropological thinking. I'd like to start from a short story of Nasreddin Hoxha. As I narrate the story, please try to picture what they are doing and how they are communicating or miscommunicating. Hoxha and the Foreigner. Once upon a time, a foreign scholar and his group were passing through a town in Anatolia. The scholar asked to speak to the town's most knowledgeable person. The local people immediately called Hoxha to come to meet the foreign scholar. The foreigner did not speak Turkish, Persian, or Arabic, and Hoxha did not speak any European languages. So the two wise men had to communicate with gestures. First, the foreigner used a stick to draw a large circle in the sand. Hoxha then took the stick and divided the circle into two halves. Next, the foreigner drew a line perpendicular to the one Hoxha drew, so the circle was now split into four. He then pointed the stick first at 3/4 of the circle and then at the remaining quarter, like this. In response, Hoxha made a swirling motion with the stick on the 4/4. Then the foreigner made a ball shape with his two hands held together side by side, palms up, and wiggled his fingers. Then Hoxha responded by coupling his hands with his palms down and wiggling his fingers. Okay, so now could you picture how they were communicating? And can you think of what their communication could have meant to each other? Now let's hear the rest of the story. When the meeting was over, the members of the foreigners group asked him what they had talked about. Hoxha is a very learned man, he said. I told him that the earth was round, and he told me there was an equator slicing it in half. I told him 3/4 of the earth was water and 1/4 of it was land. He said there were undercurrents and winds. I told him the waters warms up, vaporize, and move toward the sky. And to that he replied they cool off and come down as rain. The people of the town were also curious about how the conversation went. They gathered around Hoxha. This stranger has very good taste, Hoxha explained. He said he wished there was a large tray of baklava. I said he could only have half of it. He said the syrup should be made with 3 parts sugar and 1 part honey. I agreed, and said they all had to be well mixed together. Next, he suggested we should cook it on blazing fire, and I added that we should pour crushed nuts on top of it. Okay, so now we learned how the two of them were misunderstanding each other. But why do you think the two interpretations were so different? And what do you think is the message or lesson of the story? There are many possible lessons of the story, but today I'd like to share some with you. The first is to do with our cultural perspectives. We all see the world from our cultural perspectives. Culture here includes our habits, rules, and expectations. It is something we take for granted, which also influences and restricts our perspectives and ways of doing things. Also, we often consider that other people see the world in the same way we do. At the same time, we often assume that what we intend to communicate is what is received. That's why the misunderstanding continued. In this story, the meeting between Hoja and the foreigner went quite peacefully. But we can also imagine other scenarios. For example, if the foreigners invaded and colonized the townspeople would be forced to learn the perspectives and ways of thinking of the foreigners. This happens in any power relations. The less powerful people are the ones who have to accommodate what the powerful people think. Parent-child or teacher-student examples might come to mind. But this is also related to many serious issues in our contemporary world. Finally, we can also notice that in one way, their communication was successful. They didn't understand the meanings, but they both could engage in the conversation in a polite way. In other words, they succeeded at the level of meta-communication, meaning the message that I accept you as a person with respect and I want to communicate with you was well conveyed. This also implies more generally persons and relations themselves are also enacted or created through communication and interaction. To conclude today's lecture, cultural anthropology aims to understand and respect differences, and it's often intercultural communication that teaches us to be attentive to differences. Moreover, by learning from others, we can gain critical perspectives on our own cultures and transform parts of them, including ourselves. I look forward to learning anthropology together with you and exploring alternative and better ways of being. Thank you, and bye bye.